I know I don't know a lot of ball. I mean, I really do. Right? This whole channel feels like an exercise in filling in my gaps of ball knowledge. I mean, because I grew up, one of the big things I've learned since I started doing this, playing Football Manager on the internet a long time ago, at least, allow me to pretend to be Zealand for a second here, right? And getting all the way to this point is that when you are raised in a culture where a sport is the dominant one, right, or one of the dominant ones, and you're just kind of ingrained from an early age from what you learned from your grandparents, from what you learned from your parents, you're ingrained with an understanding of the history of the game, right? There are just certain things that you know implicitly that I don't when it comes to the world of football. There are just certain things I don't know. The way I describe it is like there's just random potholes. Right? You'd be cruising along and you're like, oh, damn, he just said some kind of smart and then just skirt, poof, That was actually a pretty good reenactment. You get the idea. All of a sudden, boom, I learned who Edgar Davids was like 2 years ago. I had no idea who he was. I'd never heard the name. I'd never come across a comp. For whatever reason, I just didn't know. Right? That's always my favorite example to use, but there's other little potholes. I ran into one yesterday. If you're one of those absolute psychos that watches every single video on this channel, 1, I love you. 2, I promise I'm going to run soon. And 3, I love you again. Hope I keep you company. In the idea of this channel being that you're kind of hanging out at the lunch table talking to your friend. If you ever actually believe anything I say, then what are you doing? No, but seriously, we're being serious. Yesterday, for example, they're walking into Wembley. Right? Walking up the steps of Wembley. And I'm like, I've seen that before. Right? I've watched documentaries where that's happened before. I've watched many an FA Cup final, a few League Cup finals. Right? I watched the extended highlights, the freaking Newcastle one. Right? But I've watched them walk up the steps. I've certainly seen them celebrate and say, I never knew that was like a tradition that was mandated in Wembley. I thought it was some dumb thing that they did for the sponsorships because, I had never had it. I just never learned it. Right? I don't have the BBC or Sky Sports, injecting me with Rule Britannia pride and understanding that that's like some important tradition. So that was the latest thing that I learned. Right? But there is this weird caveat that exists specifically with me in that as much as there are these potholes and I have so much left to learn and I just kind of throw myself into this world as just another dude at the bar with the hot takes. I have played a lot of Football Manager. Not as much as Zealand, obviously. That dude's played more than anybody, but a lot. Right? I've made videos with different people that are football managers, talked about tactics, and been able to hold my own in those conversations. We did a whole video where I got quizzed by somebody that has managerial accreditations. I passed the quiz. I have no interest in getting my coaching badges or anything, but playing that much Football Manager gives you kind of an understanding, right? At least tactically of the game, right? A fairly detailed tactical understanding of the game. It's kind of the point of the video game itself. And so if there is any leg that I can stand on at all when discussing the world of football, and there are not many, it's more just, I'm just a fan. And I'm excited to talk about it. One of those legs would be the actual judging of teams and players that I actually, in my rare free time, have the ability to watch in depth. And so I mean this when I say it. With whatever gravitas that I can rub together, a couple of pennies in my pocket and throw forward, you need to watch Lamine Yamal. You need to. I know you probably have. You need to watch him more. There's this list that came out. 10 most valuable players in the world according to Football Benchmark Player Valuation Platform. And I was instantly offended by this list. I was offended by it on behalf of Lamine Yamal. And that's no disrespect to all of the other players that I'm looking at. But I don't know how exactly they're going to go about the business of calculating this. And I'm aware that Lamine Yamal has risen, according to their calculations, 33.6 million euros. Right? Biggest riser on the whole list. But I don't know if you've watched Lamine Yamal recently. I have. In that limited free time, I have watched extended portions of Lamine Yamal's games. I've watched his full matches. Right? he is one of the best players in the world right now. He is. Super uncomfortable fact, considering he's like 17, right? He is one of the best players in the world right now. Now, how in the Sam Hill ever-loving fuck is the best play? Sorry, one of the best players in the world who is also 17, not number one on this list. Now, I believe in Kylian Mbappe's supremacy. I believe that he is every bit of the player that he is. Right? I'm not a hater at all. Right? I've watched this man dominate 2 World Cups. I watched this man go toe-to-toe with Messi on the biggest stage imaginable. He's that dude. Right? If you're building a best 25 in history after Kylian Mbappe retires, maybe before, he's going to be involved in those conversations as, well, what do you think about Kylian Mbappe being in that best 25 players that's ever existed? I'm building a 26-man squad for an international call-up window. Right now, you have to pick from every player that's ever existed in history. Kylian Mbappe will probably be in that conversation, especially if he goes on to win 2, 3, 7 Champions Leagues. It's just tradition at Real Madrid. They do it whether he's there or not. Right, but that's just going to change the way that he is perceived massively because he didn't win any at PSG. But can you blame him? PSG's literally never won one, ever. But Lamine Yamal is 17 years old. So if I'm looking at value, right, here's what I'm looking at. How many years am I going to get the best out of Lamine Yamal? Kylian Mbappe is 26. That is a fact that makes me uncomfortable because I remember when Kylian Mbappe was way younger than 26. So it's kind of dating me a little bit, right? It's like the inevitable march of time that I'm having to reconcile there. But he's 26. Lamine Yamal is 17. The difference in age at this current moment, rounding, is 9 years between Lamine Yamal and Kylian Mbappe. Lamine Yamal has already won the Euros. He's already won it. He didn't get carried. He was one of the key players in the route to winning the Euros. He's 17. He is one of the crucial parts of an attack that is considered by many to be the best in the world right now with Lewandowski and Rafinha. Those 3 guys, deadly, razor sharp, leading a renaissance at Barcelona. That's 9 years. 9-year gap. How is he not the most valuable player? If you can get this guy on your team, assuming that he is playing somewhere near his prime until 31 or 32, you are looking at 14 to 15 years of having one of, if not the best player in the world on your team. That is worth a lot more than 157 million euros. I don't know why I've decided to see this on my feed and just dissect it so aggressively. Because that's not the only other dumb thing on here. Phil Foden is the 9th most valuable player in the world. We haven't even gotten to that. But I really just wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk about Lamine Yamal. And I'm not making this up. He's the first player to complete 100 successful dribbles in Europe's top 5 leagues this season. He's 17 years old. According to Who Scored, he has 101 successful dribbles. Nobody has over 100. He's the first one through the door, which means he's playing a lot, he's playing at a high level, and he's 17. I said this on stream, right? You know, Zealand and I, we kind of co-stream sometimes. Lamine Yamal reminds me of 2 guys, and a combination of 2, but I'm going to need you to chill because I'm not saying he's better than either of them. He feels like a bit of Messi and a bit of Ronaldo. Lamine Yamal brings more physicality to his game than Lionel Messi ever did. Messi is the greatest player of all time. He didn't need it, right? Because he just floats by people and he has got the ball in a string and he has the 6th sense for exactly where he needs to put the ball to elude defenders or whatever, right? He has that. A lot of people call it a gift. I always hesitate to call it a gift because I believe that it discredits the amount of work that people put in to be as good at something, as they are. But he clearly has a relationship with the ball that nobody else does. Lamine Yamal isn't Messi, but he has a special relationship with the ball. He has an innate understanding of how to get by people, which is very difficult to do. If you are, if I'm standing here and a world-class athlete is standing there, I'm fucked. For Lamine Yamal, for Lionel Messi, for Vinny Jr., those types of people, it doesn't matter. And if you watch Lamine Yamal, it is smooth. It is confident. It doesn't feel like he's trying that hard. But then when the defender gets up on him, Lamine Yamal is bigger. And because he's like 12, he's still growing. And there is a physicality that has come into this game, into his game really this year. Watching him in La Liga, watching him in the Champions League, that reminds me of Ronaldo. It does. That kind of ability to ride with a guy on your shoulder, that kind of aggression, that kind of physical tenacity, not shying away from contact, being a physical presence that is also able to overwhelm the defense. He's like somewhere in between the two. Again, not better than either. Not even close. Not trying to suggest that. You don't even want to put that type of pressure. But his play style, right in the middle of the two. Dude he worked very hard to get where he is. And his mindset is exactly right. It seems to be, and he's executing at a super high level. But for me, somebody that watches the game, the guy is a gift from the footballing gods. Like some sort of lightning bolt struck, and Zeus was like, I'm going to have another kid, and it's Lamine Yamal. So yes, I saw that and felt that it was kind of dumb that Lamine Yamal is not considered the most valuable player in the world, which is no offense to anybody else on this list except for Phil Foden, who I think shouldn't really be on it. Even though he's obviously a fabulous player, I just don't think he's here anymore. The real point is that Lamine Yamal is somebody that if you haven't watched him a lot, you should. You should make time. Because it's an occasion. And as the farther they get in the Champions League, there is a real possibility Barcelona wins the Champions League this year because of that front three. A front three that includes a guy that is every bit of 17 and yet looks like the best player on the field and the majority of the time that he's on the field. Fun. Glad we have a guy like this again. Gonna be awesome. Who makes these things? Who makes these?